Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of those who make the world better. Their job, as they see it, is to live according to what we call service above self. They get together with other Rotarians and they support causes and raise funds to support, cool things happening. They get their hands dirty, like getting in there to help make things happen. There is a joy and meaning that come from helping others, and Rotarians understand that. And we love telling the stories of people who are doing that in all sorts of interesting ways. If you are not a Rotarian and curious about all of this, then feel free to learn more about Rotary at rotary.org and about our online and asynchronous, highly unusual, but incredibly flexible service club model that is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. Go to rotary.cool. Yes, that really will take you there. Now, our speaker today is Tiffany Loeffler. She is with an organization here in California that has brought together a number of different strengths and possibilities from across the community in a way that we think is probably something others need to consider emulating. And so, as that being exciting for us, I will also say that Tiffany is the founder and executive director of the Alliance, defending the cause of kids and families. You can learn much more about her in the full bio, which you can access by pausing this video or this podcast and going to the page, maybe our YouTube channel, maybe our Spotify or Apple channel, whatever it might be, and giving that a much closer look. But I will hand it over to her. Tiffany, welcome to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley.
Thank you, Russian, for having me. It's a joy to be with you and to be with all the Rotarians that access content and innovation digitally. That's pretty fantastic in terms of the way you bring people together around common causes. So today I'm excited to join you and share something a little bit innovative that we are doing in the Greater Sacramento region. So my presentation topic is called Collaboration for a Cause. And as I'm presenting what I'm doing and our organization is doing here in the Greater Sacramento region, I'd love you to kind of be thinking about a cause that you care about and maybe a geographic region that you're in, because I don't believe that this is unique to just the specific cause of vulnerable kids or just the Sacramento area. This is a model that could potentially be duplicated or accessed or tapped into in all different causes and regions. So let me dive in with a little bit more of a description of myself and my journey. I'm super passionate about vulnerable kids after going on a missions trip to Haiti in 2010. They had their massive earthquake then, and the entire country was in disarray. My husband and I were able to get onto a missions team doing some disaster relief work just a few months after the earthquake. Ended up going to multiple orphanages, and my heart broke for kids without families. This is a fourth world country, so they are in abject poverty. The access to medical care, food, water, resources of any sort is very limited. But then also, when kids are growing up in congregate care, they do not have the infrastructure to have a connected relationship and a family life. And so that started on a personal journey into our international adoption. This is actually a picture of my son, James, and my daughter, Lori. And we started the process to adopt them in 2011. It took 6.5 years to get them here. So that's a whole nother story for a different day. But finally, they were approved to come to the United States in 2017. And now they're 19 and 22 years old. So we went through this journey of becoming adoptive parents. But as we were in the process, waiting for legal paperwork to go through and immigration's paperwork to go through, I did the deep dive because this kind of opened Pandora's box, so to speak, to realize that there are vulnerable kids right here in our community, right here in the Greater Sacramento region, right throughout California, throughout the United States. This is not a impoverished country issue. The reality is that the statistics after COVID are that 2/3 of kids in the US will experience a major traumatic event in their life before they turn 16. And as a parent, that might not be your child. Maybe your kids are growing up in an amazing connected home, but the reality is that if it's not your child, it's the one on either side of them in the classroom. And this is across all demographics, all regions, from low-income neighborhoods to really well-connected, well-resourced neighborhoods. California has the highest number of kids in the foster care system in the nation, with over 60,000 kids in the foster care system. We have over 3,000 kids right here in the Greater Sacramento region. Sacramento is also a hub for human trafficking. So I found out that we're in the top 10 cities nationwide where trafficking victims are taken and then dispersed all to different regions. We're also a hub in our area for refugees. We're the #2 resettlement site nationwide for Afghan refugees, and the #3 resettlement site in the US for Ukrainian refugees coming here right now as the war is going on. So the reality is childhood trauma, whether it's teens committing suicide, whether it's teen pregnancy, whether it's families going through divorce and now the children's lives and their stability is ripped apart, it looks a lot of different ways and it happens in a lot of different contexts. But we as a community need to realize that childhood trauma is disrupting lives all the time, and that's going to have major ramifications on the success of a child's life. So, the great news, however, is that there are agencies in every community, nonprofits in every community, professionals, churches, schools, county systems, the children's system of care, child welfare. All of those exist in every county in California. But what I found as I was digging a little bit deeper into our region, that those organizations often are in silos, especially nonprofits and especially organizations versus government systems. They don't work together, and oftentimes they don't even know what other organizations are providing. So it's really kind of a disparate set of resources. And unless you have personal connections to them, it'd be really hard to access a cohesive system of care. I also found that if organizations do know about each other, there's major competition in the nonprofit space. I didn't think that that was a reality until I started meeting with executive directors and agency leaders. And they said, we didn't get into the helping space thinking that we were competing. We thought we'd all be on the same team. And that's what I thought too. But the reality is, every organization needs two things to survive. They need people and they need funding. And there's often a scarcity mindset. And so organizations tend to get a little bit protective and a little bit competitive over donors, over volunteers, even over community connections. So the reality is, we usually have all the right resources within a community in order to provide that safety net for vulnerable kids, but they're disconnected. What we decided to do here in the Greater Sacramento region, and this is with a whole team of other leaders that came together to cast the vision for the Alliance, was to say, could we make connections for the case of vulnerable kids? Could we make connections between all of those organizations so that instead of operating in individual silos, each organization really actually operated in relationship and in knowledge of what the other organizations were offering? So now we're operating with a connected community around a common cause because there's so much interplay between trafficking and crisis pregnancies and refugees and families coming out of homelessness. They all need similar services like stable housing, like mental health resources. They need access to food pantries or clothing closets. Maybe they need placement services for kids or mentoring. All of those are in a continuum of care. And when the leaders of these organizations are working together and know each other, all of a sudden there is a shift to collaboration. And so I'm excited to unpack for you how that works here in the Sacramento region. Our mission at the Alliance is to prevent and heal childhood trauma, again, knowing that it's impacting 2/3 of kids. And we're doing it in a unique way because we didn't want to start another nonprofit. In the Sacramento region, there are over 1,200 nonprofit organizations. We have a lot of them in our region, and there are over 450 of them serving at-risk youth. So our unique model, our mission is to actually prevent and heal childhood trauma by leveraging the power of collaboration. We are a behind the scenes bridge organization that says that all of the great work happening on the front lines is happening by our partners out in the community. Those agencies, those nonprofits, those professionals, and those churches that are saying, I'm providing a resource or I'm providing a whole suite of programs and resources and events for at-risk youth and families. And we just get to make the connections behind the scenes to leverage the ability for those organizations to operate maybe more efficiently, maybe with less overlap of or duplication of services, and certainly with this goal that we all win when one organization wins. So we've been around for 10 years. It's been a decade of collaboration. Our network now includes 115 different organizations in the Greater Sacramento area. We just celebrated our 10 years at an event we held on Tuesday, and I shared that in the next decade, my goal is to get to 250 organizations. Again, they need to be in relationship with each other to build those collaborative connections. And we're doing that across 5 counties. We wanted services and resources to be drivable because, especially when kids and families are facing a crisis, they're not going to be coming, they don't need to make a 3 hour drive. And so ultimately, our region covers Sacramento, Placer, Yolo, and El Dorado County, as well as Nevada County. And we're connecting the leaders, the organizations, and the resources for this common cause. So collaboration's a buzzword. You've probably had some presentations before at your Rotary Club that talked about the power of collaboration. I love to dive into the nuts and bolts of how it actually works. And so we have 3 lanes. I'll just outline them briefly to you. But the number one thing is organizations do not partner together, people do. And so we love to connect organizations with each other and valuable resources through a suite of services. We have an online member community so they can connect with each other online 365 days a year. We host quarterly member networking events where they can meet, share ideas, share resources, get to know each other on a personal level. We do a very beautiful 5-course dinner that you see in this picture called a Night to Celebrate. And it's our member appreciation event where there are no awards, but there's this beautiful opportunity to raise the bar and honor all of our members. And then we also have pro workshops where we're bringing business leaders to equip nonprofit leaders to be better at what they do. Our next lane is to mobilize the entire community to make a difference. And so through our Love in Action database, people can find volunteer opportunities and donated item requests. We do 3 large annual donation drives that are then distributed through our member network. We house a emergency supply closet, so we are giving out beds and dressers and bikes and all sorts of emergency supplies year round. And we're launching a brand new program this year called our Community Care Team, which is a humanized form of 211 where we're connecting people to other people to help them get resources in our community. Our final lane is to equip people to support kids in trauma-informed ways. And so we found that if you're working with a vulnerable youth, you really need a different set of skills in order to engage them well and help them heal. And so we've hosted annual childhood trauma conferences the last 10 years. We have a whole suite of online learning center courses. We teach an 8-week parenting class. We have a foster care and adoption 101 workshop. Plus, we do custom coaching and workshops for our community. So to wrap this up, the way our network is growing is exponential. It's a beautiful thing. We currently, as I mentioned, have 115 organizations that are saying, hey, I want to exchange competition for collaboration, and it's making their organizations better. I love to give a final example of how this works. The Alliance is really a behind the scenes force multiplier. And if you haven't heard that term before, it just means 2 + 2 = 10. And it's really allowing us to infuse support and resources into an organization. And so I give the example of Children's Hope Foster Family Agency. They're an Alliance member. We do have some member dues that make up the joining part of becoming an Alliance member, but it only makes up about 4% of our budget. We invest an additional $2,000 per member organization each year into the services and suite of resources that we provide. Last year alone, Children's Hope got countless beds, diapers, car seats. They've gotten all sorts of Christmas gifts for all the kids and families they serve. And so not including any of the connections that were made or any of the connections to other organizations where they could refer for mental health, just the items alone Children's Hope families received from the Alliance last year totaled over $15,000. And this is work they didn't have to do, donations they did not have to receive. We just did the work for them. And so ultimately, the Alliance is here as a united movement. I think this model could be really effective for other causes in other regions, and I'm so excited to answer some questions and to share more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Let's definitely dive into those questions. And let's start with this. The business model that allows the Alliance to do what it does, kind of zeroing in on the last thing you talked about in your presentation. There is a $600 membership dues for each organization.
It's on a graded scale. So that's the highest. It
Okay.
goes from 100 to 600 based on staff size.
Okay. So that makes sense. I multiply that by 115, and we're clearly not in anywhere near the majority of your revenue. How is the Alliance funded to really kind of make the impact you describe?
Absolutely. We love to diversify our revenue streams. And so we are 80% funded in three categories in individuals who believe in donating to something that is got a widespread net. So these are the strategic thinkers that say, hey, I really like that you're serving 5 counties, that you're serving multiple vulnerable populations. And so we have some very consistent donors that are individuals. We receive some grant funding. And we also have some really incredible business sponsors in the community that get behind our mission. So about 80% of our funding comes from those three streams. The remaining two streams of income, one is member dues, the other is kind of an honorarium or fee-for-service model. So our online learning center courses have a small cost. Our childhood trauma conference has a ticketing cost. And so there are some resources that we've produced over the years that then become tools and other sources of income for our mission.
Okay, that makes plenty of sense. As doing what we do as a Rotary Club, it strikes me that there are any number of presentations from the last few years that overlap with, what the Alliance does, right? I think about human trafficking and the really amazing presentation we had from Sharon Denoa of South Bay Coalition Against Human
Great.
Trafficking, about foster kids and the just heart-wrenching stories that comfort cases with Rob Shear, that what they're
Mhm.
doing. Talent Beyond Borders is one, Betsy Fisher, and you're talking about refugees and
Great.
helping people really channel into, the kind of great positions that might be available for people who otherwise, are just kind of a couple of steps away from being able to do that. And even a recent one with Angel Flight West and Clay Ross and getting kids who are in difficult circumstances or getting people in difficult circumstances flown to the hospitals and places they need to
Wow.
be.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The hope for me is that with every speaker, there's kind of a, oh goodness, this is a rich vein to mine, right?
Yes.
And absolutely so. For you, I'm curious to mine the idea that when you are running the Love in Action database that you mentioned, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to describe what I think that is, and please correct my misunderstandings. There are people in the community who now know about the Alliance. They know that it's easy to go to the Alliance to find where it is that they can volunteer in order to or to support, financially or whatever it is they do, through the information that you provide. Is that what Love in Action is?
It's even more robust than that.
Cool.
We know that people are scrollers, right? They're on their devices, they're scrolling social media, they love to know what's going on in their friends' lives and in their community through social media. So we've actually gone through three different iterations of our Love in Action database. It's on version 3.0 right now because we want it to have all of the robust features of a database listing, almost like a classified ads, but we wanted it to look like Instagram. And so our Love in Action database, you go on and you either select, I want to look for donated items or I want to look for volunteer opportunities. And then you're scrolling through a list that's picture and image generated of the opportunities that are available through our network. So all of
Mhm.
our Alliance members, when they join, they have access to this technology. They create their own dashboard and their own profile. Whenever a volunteer opportunity or a donated item need comes up, say, for example, a family's coming into care and they're going to be taking in 2 kids, but they don't have extra beds. And so there's a family that needs a bunk bed. Or there's a single mom who's needing to come home from the hospital and she does not have a car seat for that baby. These are things, specific stories in our community that the community wouldn't necessarily know about if it wasn't for this database. But people have car seats, people have diapers, people have bunk beds, or they will buy them if they know that the need exists. So the reality is when kids have tangible needs met in a quick way, it just propels them on to being more resilient and to healing or from whatever situation happens. And all these organizations were looking to have needs met, but doing it in a very kind of diverse way. And so we put it all in one database. And so individuals from the community can scroll that database, but they also get an email if they sign up for weekly emails and get it sent to them of here's the new needs this week. Every Thursday, that email goes out to hundreds, and we're working towards thousands of people. If anybody wants to meet those needs, it's just a couple clicks away. It's like adding something to your Amazon cart, signing out. You get an immediate email saying, thanks for volunteering. Here's your point of contact. They'll get you more information. Or thanks for donating this crib. In the next 2 weeks, please deliver it to this person at this location. We're not even involved anymore. It's beautiful because then the person's taking that car seat or that crib or that set of diapers directly to the nonprofit that requested it, usually getting a tour, meeting the team, and becoming engaged in that organization's mission.
So if you have an email list and you're sending stuff out once a week to be on people's radar to help them, make that connection to the thing that they really want to be able to do to help the community, how do you work to expand that list? How are you getting the word out about the alliance in order for people in the community to get excited? And this is a question for any nonprofit trying to tell its story, of course.
Exactly. Well, first of all, I hired an associate director a year ago who is a marketing expert. So she puts together marketing plans several times per year. We're going to be doing one this summer, where you're highlighting the really great things that are going on at your organization. I also love to tell organizations, never tell people why you're better, just tell people why you're unique.
Mm.
That reduces the competition between organizations. But embedded in that social media and email campaign will be opportunities to sign up. So even on our website, there's a pop-up that says subscribe to our monthly newsletter. And we won't spam you more than once a month. You just get some highlights of the Alliance once a month. But there's an option for three other types of emails. Would you like a weekly needs digest email? Would you like information about educational resources? And would you like information about becoming a donor? So if you check any of those boxes, you're immediately onboarded. But yes, ultimately doing campaigns surrounding, your community and your lists that you have, and building those lists up is definitely the way to go. So we started the database was not an interactive database, the first two versions. This new version now sends those direct emails. And so even just in the last 9 months, we already have several hundred people that are signed up for that weekly email. Our goal in the next year is to get that to over 1,000.
Does that include expanding the geographic area?
Nope. I think people still want to drive to be able to meet needs. I mean, they can sometimes use an Amazon wish list and have an item donated through Amazon and delivered. But for the most part, we want Sacramento people meeting Sacramento area needs.
Okay, that makes sense. As a model, do you have people contacting you from other parts of the country or other parts of the world to just say, hey, can you tell us more about how to set something like this up in our community?
I have. I've coached a group in Canada, in the Toronto area on our model, and they are navigating all of the connections that they're trying to build. I've had some connections in LA and the Bay Area. I'm an open book. The Alliance is not planning to expand outside of the Sacramento region, but I'm happy to share what we do, how we do it, the calendar of events that we host, and the technology that we use, because the Alliance is this interesting hybrid. We love in-person gatherings, and I truly believe that more trust is built when people have the opportunity to sit across the table, maybe share a meal. But technology is needed in order to scale, in order to reach people. And you have a very tech-based platform, which is obviously working for this e-club. So that's fantastic because people can drop in and really access great content. So we use both. We use in-person things and technology things. And I'm happy to share that with anybody looking to start a collaborative in their community.
Nice. You mentioned a bit about having a marketing person on your team. How big is your team? Tell me more about the structure of the alliance.
Yes, we have a 10-person staff. There are two full-time and eight part-time employees. It's an amazing group of people who are all passionate about serving vulnerable kids and families, but each of them has a slightly unique skill set in terms of what they bring. So we have someone doing our communications. We have a team member that's doing some donor relations and fundraising, and my associate director kind of leads those two branches. Those are those external facing branches. I'm over all of our programs. And so we have a church relations director. We have a member relations team that supports our agencies and nonprofits. We've got someone running that Love in Action program, including the drives and the database and all of the emergency supply closet. We have an outreach leader, and then I have an assistant that runs all of our events.
That sounds like a really strong team.
It is.
Uh, and it also strikes me that the way you have built this has some careful guardrails on it, right? So as not to take on too much or anything like that. It is that indeed a part of your thinking and how this comes together? I mean, I can imagine this would be good advice for any number of people out there.
We have we built organically. So we've hardly ever done job postings when we want to expand. We're usually tapping into our network of connections or our board or our resources in the community to do new hiring. But when you're doing something collaborative, it's rather unique. It's unique to explain to a community member, it's unique to explain to a potential donor. When you're doing that, your reputation, basically you need to do things really well. And so this isn't the spaghetti on the wall and let's see what sticks. This is very much calculated to like, let's do things that are going to be high return on investment, high likelihood of effectiveness. We use the Working Genius tool. If you have heard of that from Patrick Lencioni, it's a how you get work done. And there's like a personality profile you fill out, and there's 6 ways to get work done. We want a diverse group of people on our team that have different skill sets. So we use that in our interview process. But ultimately, we want to add programs, add events, and add staff when we're able to do that well.
Okay. So you mentioned, I think, 2 full-time and 8 part-time. I know you have a doctorate in physical
I do.
therapy and that you have a private practice. Are you one of the part-timers?
I'm full-time. For us, full-time is 32 hours and above. I'm here 36 hours a week, but I do see patients still 1 day a week at my PT clinic. What's really fun with that is it gets to use a different side of my brain 1 day a week, which is awesome. It also turns into an opportunity that now almost all of my physical therapy patients, who I've known for many of them for almost 2 decades, they're Alliance supporters. They're donating to our drives. They know that I'm only available for them 1 day a week. So they're like, where are you the other 4 days a week? And so they really get involved in big ways with the Alliance.
Nice. Are there particular opportunities or technologies or anything that have cropped up quite recently that you are excited about?
Our online Alliance member community, I am super excited about. That's a relatively new resource for the Alliance. When we first started, we were just using a private Facebook group so that as organizations would join the Alliance, they would have one or multiple representatives that we'd send an invite to. And that way they could, cross collaborate, they could post resources or ideas or ask each other questions. We were finding that more people were moving away from Facebook, using LinkedIn more professionally or Instagram just for the social side of things. And so and those groups aren't necessarily as conducive for those connections. So we're using a platform that's built on with a company called Circle. And so we received a local grant to access that technology, and it took about 3 months to build it out, but it has a member directory. We're able to house some of our online trauma courses. It has different feeds so they can ask each other questions, introduce each other, share resources, put their events on a calendar that we can all see. And it's been a game changer. It's been really helpful for them. It's got a filter in the member directory. So if organizations, say, are serving refugees in Sacramento County, and they'd like to apply for a grant. But that grant requires a collaborative nature to the application, which is a shift for a lot of grants. They're really asking, who are you working with in order to accomplish the goal that you're trying to achieve? If you don't necessarily have a relationship, you can't be collaborative and can't apply for that grant. So within our platform, you could do a filter to say what other leaders are working with refugees in Sac County, find those people, send them a direct message, get in touch with them and potentially co-author that grant together.
All right. Nice. Let me finish with a question that's a bit more personal, right? You not a bit. You and your husband went to Haiti, right?
Yes.
Your heart broke, seeing what you saw. You ended up going the long road and adopting a couple of kids. As they have gotten older and kind of watched what you do with the Alliance, what has been the learning for them and for you as a function of that very personal experience, thinking about what happens in the larger community?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I'm happy to share. It's been a really hard journey of starting to rewrite their trauma histories, and they both have two very different personalities. My daughter is now 22, my son is 19. They've had some different strategies of how to cope with all the really horrible things they saw when they were in that orphanage for so many years. And my daughter's really shut down. And so we're still using every trauma parenting tool in our tool belt. And thank goodness for the Alliance and my connections with local counselors and therapists, and I've gotten a lot of trauma training through even the resources we produce. I'm not there necessarily teaching, I'm there learning as well. And so being able to use those skill sets and have access to really amazing clinicians has helped in our adoption journey. But our daughter's still like, she's shut down, she's introverted, she wants to push away anyone that would come close to her because she had a lot of trauma. And so I can use what I know to not take that personally and still really help her, move towards adulthood. Our son's really fun because he'll come and do things with me. So we celebrated our 10th birthday on Tuesday. He was there helping set up and tear down the stage and the speakers. He actually donated $100 to our cause. Like it was really sweet. So he very much appreciates where he could be if he were still in Haiti and where he is now. And he's come a long way in his healing journey. And one of the fun surprises is that we actually have a biological 3-year-old. He joined the family 3 years ago through the natural pathway. And it's really fun to see that he's healing trauma in my older kids because they had never seen how little kids should have been cared for. And now they're getting to witness that firsthand. And so we have a family of 3 kids ranging from 3 to 22, and it's been a wild ride.
Reminds me of Mary Gordon's story of the way understanding happens through essentially learning to interact with babies, right? I mean, like
Exactly.
quite amazing. So I'll wind things down and then hand it back to you for the final word.
Yes.
To all of you who have chosen to watch this recording or listen to this podcast, we thank you. There are a lot of ways you can spend your time. But finding how you can be inspired to make a difference in the lives of others is absolutely a good way to spend a few minutes. And we think that the archives that we have of the many people from all over the world who have done really interesting, really thought-provoking things about addressing vexing problems that are out there. We think that is something you should just keep doing, right? Let people know about our site, about our channels. Keep coming back. If you've got questions for us, let us know. You absolutely can contact us in a number of ways, including programs@siliconvalleyrotary.com. That's one of the many ways, and we hope you will think about what it means to connect with us and to service clubs in your community of any description. As we always like to do, we hand it back to the speaker for the final word. Tiffany, what would you like people who are finishing up this video or this podcast to have in mind as they go back out into the world?
Well, one of our top core values is that everyone can make a difference. And I think each of us has a different skill set, a different background, maybe a different amount of time available or resources at our disposal. But truly, whatever cause tugs at your heart, I would just encourage you to press into that. Everyone can make a difference. And then ultimately, for kids and families, what's broken in relationship gets healed in relationships. And the kids in your life really need you to show up for them.
Beautiful. Thank you again. And thank you, everyone. We will see you next week.